What's up, everybody? Mid-Major Matt here. Matt Josephs on a Monday, filling in for Ariel, who's on vacation still on a beach. I don't know what she's doing, where she is right now. She's probably not paying attention, which is fine. That's where I would not be watching the show if I was in an exotic location. We got a lot to get into here on the show today. We can do a little bit of what we were right about, what we were wrong about last week. We can certainly do that. And we're going to get into Monday Night Football. We are going to get into college basketball. I do briefly want to talk about a little baseball, the close of the baseball season, and how the season closed, and maybe a future or two I might be interested in. And then we're going to have Jared Block on from Trinity Analytics. And it's funny because we've agreed on a couple of props from time to time, and he's been on after me. So it'll be good to talk to him. He'll be doing some NBA. So that we will be doing some NBA with him coming up a little bit later on in the show. So certainly a lot to get into. And as always, we want you to interact. Mark, I'm glad to see you're here. I'd still be in a dark room after that World Series, after the way it ended. But good to see you, Mark, joining the show here. Obviously, look, I was wrong on the distance. With regards to the World Series, I still got the LA bet that I had put out before the postseason. And look, if I didn't have that, I'd be certainly rooting for Toronto. I'd certainly be rooting for Toronto. That was an amazing Game 7. So many twists and turns, so many moves that were done properly. So I had posted on my Twitter account, I had a bet that I made before the preseason on DraftKings. It was Yamamoto to have under a 2.52 ERA in the postseason. And I thought after Game 6, I was like, all right, that thing's over. And then he's coming in and he's still pitching a couple of innings. I'm like, oh, God, if he gets shelled, I'm going to lose this bet. But luckily, he did not. He was amazing. To be able to do what he did after pitching in Game 6 on Game 7, not a lot of people would have been able to do that. And I feel you, Mark, although now you know how I felt in 1993 when Joe Carter ran around the bases against Mitch Williams. But yes, I feel for all the Toronto fans. The other thing I kind of feel for Toronto fans is, like, there's no guarantee this is going to happen again. And I guess we could briefly get into this. So, like, look, you're not going to tie up any futures money now for next season because, unless you have a lot of money, you're not going to do it now because you're tying it up for essentially 11 months. And that's money you're not going to have. But let me tell you the one team that I would buy if I was to do this, and I just saw their odds on DraftKings is 13-1 to win the American League. And you could probably find better. 16-1 on Caesars. To me, it's the Orioles. To me, if the Orioles make the right moves, they are one or two starting pitchers away from being a contender. Now, look, they have to shore up their bullpen a little bit. And, of course, their track record is they had a terrible offseason last offseason. But let's remember, if the Orioles got the right starting pitchers or kept Corbin Burns last year, Orioles may have won that division. Their lineup is really good. It's still really young. Their rotation, if Zach Eflin and Grayson Rodriguez stay healthy, they've still got Bautista at closer, I think. I don't know who's a free agent on that roster, but, like, if I was to tie up all my money or some money on a baseball futures bet right now, I probably would bet the Orioles to win the American League. I don't think they're going to win the World Series. Let's be honest. The Dodgers are winning the World Series again next year. And I think it's good because then that means we're going to have a lockout in 2026. This sport needs a lockout. It needs a salary cap. It needs to even things up the best it can. I do find it funny that we make Toronto to be these underdog types, and they were obviously in the series, but their payroll, I think, was, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 6th or 7th overall in baseball. I think the Blue Jays were 7th overall. So it's not like they were this small market team. The Blue Jays payroll is very huge too. And remember, they were in the mix to sign Shohei as well when he chose to go to the Dodgers or when he was going to the Angels or whatever. Like, they were in the mix for Shohei as well. So it's not like the Blue Jays are this small market team. I think they're about 7th in the payroll. So I like the Orioles. I'm not tying it up right now. The only thing is, if the Orioles do make the right moves, then this number that you're going to get right now is gone. The problem is I can't I mean, I have some money that I could tie up, but I don't want to do it for 11 months. And Joe here says the Orioles need a player or two that can teach them how to win in October, the same way Pete Rose taught Mike Schmidt to win in 1980. I mean, that is the case. They needed at least the experience this year. And Mike Elias had a terrible offseason. Charlie Morton, Sugano, that was the wrong moves. You should have kept Burns and maybe even added another starting pitcher, and then you could have won this division. Like, I have more faith in the Orioles, I think, than the Yankees, although the Yankees rotation should be tremendous again next year with all the young guys. But all right, that's enough. We're not going to tie our money up in baseball bets for 11 months. All right, let's talk Monday Night Football tonight. I actually took some notes down. Now, I didn't make them into a graphic. That probably would have been the intelligent thing here, but I'm really interested in tonight's game. And I'm interested from a couple of different angles because that I like to refer to myself as the kicker whisperer. Based off those numbers tonight, I'd probably be a little interested in Chad Ryland over 1.5 field goals. Dallas is 12th in the league, allowing 1.6 field goals per game made. Arizona is 29th at 2.1 field goals per game made. Problem is, Brandon Aubrey's field goal number is and always will be too high. Have you guys seen the number and the juice for what Brandon Aubrey's field goals is? If you haven't looked on BetMGM right now, it is minus 235 on a kicker to make 2 field goals. DraftKings actually moved their number to 2.5. And so it's plus 145 over 2.5. It's under 2.5 at minus 186. That is very rare. That is like Justin Tucker stuff. That's what they used to do for him. And Chris Boswell, by the way. Like, Chris Boswell was the guy that you also like. Here's the thing that's interesting about this position now. With Cam Little kicking a 68-yarder? Like, there is no limit anymore. There is no limit. And so teams are going to settle more and more for field goals. And my thing always has been, you basically you fade the defenses that are good enough to let you into the red zone and then shut you down. The Eagles have a great red zone defense. They are one of the last teams. They are allowing the most field goals per game. It's like second most or most in the game. But I could see tonight being a lot more touchdowns than field goals. But if I was to get involved with a kicker tonight, it would be Ryland instead of Aubrey. Mostly because, like, Aubrey it's just unbettable right now. It's just unbettable, to say the least. Now, the extra points, they've also made Brandon Aubrey extra points minus 175 to the over or minus 210 to the over. That's just too much. That's just way, way too much. I will never do that, even though I do think Dallas is going to score a lot of points. Ryland's extra points is 2.5 over plus 105 on DraftKings, minus 118 on BetMGM. So a little bit more manageable. But here's my thing with that. If you think Arizona is going to score over 2.5 touchdowns, just go bet on the over 2.5 touchdown market instead, because there could be a missed extra point. There could be a 2-point conversion. So that's something to watch out here for. So I don't love anything at that position, but Ryland over 1.5 would be the one I would consider, to say the least. The other thing I'm looking at tonight, and obviously I'd love to get your thoughts as we do this on props you're looking at tonight. So Jacoby Brissett, I did not realize he was as mobile as he was. I did not realize that because obviously he's been in and out of the lineup. But if you look at his numbers, he's running, and he's running with success. His the last 2 starts, he had 26 rushing yards versus Green Bay, 19 versus Indianapolis in those last 2 games. If you look at Dallas, they're allowing the second most rushing yards per game to quarterbacks. And Brissett's number for rushing is 14.5. At least that's what it was this morning. That's what I got it at. Oh, yeah, it's 14.5 pretty much everywhere, except for BetMGM, where it's 15.5, and that yard could matter. I love Brissett over 14.5 rushing yards. I played it at 14.5 this morning. Dallas's pass rush isn't that scary. It's weird because you would think the pass rushes that are really scary would be the ones that allow a lot of rushing yards, but Dallas's pass rush is not that scary, but Brissett's running, and their offensive line is not that great, so I would take a shot at Brissett again over 14.5 rushing yards. I'd also take a shot on his over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I mean, Dallas is not stopping anybody. Marvin Harrison Jr. should get one tonight. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. could get one tonight. I think it's so weird that Greg Dortch has fallen out of favor there. Greg Dortch is a very good slot guy, but he did not get a lot of snaps. Michael Wilson, he's another guy who I think could score a touchdown tonight. By the way, I like Michael Wilson over 2.5 receptions. I think Michael Wilson. So when I do a lot of these bets, I want to look at snap counts and routes run. And if I'm going to get these really low numbers, I want to take advantage of it. And if you look at Michael Wilson, the last 4 games, he's played 82%, 75%, 70%, 97%. You figure there's going to be a lot of throwing against Dallas tonight because in theory, this is going to be a shootout. Michael Wilson has had over 2.5 receptions in 3 of his last 4 games. He's the number 2 wide receiver. To get him at 2.5 for receptions, I think is fantastic. So I like him at that as well. If you look, Arizona is 30th in passing attempts allowed per game. So people are throwing on Arizona. People are more running on Dallas, almost 30 rushing attempts per game against Dallas's defense. So we may see some running, but here's the thing. And I saw I saw Uncle Ted, he brought up Bam. My problem is they're elevating Michael Carter back. Amari, DeMarcado? I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's also in the mix. And the coach has already said whoever's the hot hand is going to be the guy they use the most. So, I want nothing to do with this Arizona backfield whatsoever. I want nothing to do. Plus, I think all of them could have some modicum of success. DeMarcado is more of a receiving guy. So if you think they're going to lose and maybe that 2-minute drill, maybe he gets some receiving yards. Although I'll say this, I have not seen any props for DeMarcado tonight. There wasn't last night. I know sometimes they add them as we get closer to the game, but I have not seen a lot of Emery DeMarcado props, and I don't even see anything for him. So I don't want anything to do with that backfield whatsoever. Let's see here. M. Rojas asked, would I dabble in Brissett's longest rush at 9.5 yards? So if we look at Brissett's rushes so far this season, so he had 6 rushes for 26 yards against Green Bay. His long was 11. He had 3 rushes for 19 yards against Indianapolis. His long was 12. So the number is interesting because he is going over this longest number. But if you kind of do the math, he's averaging 3 yards per carry on the other carries. So you're either going to get a really long one and then you're going to win this bet easily, or you're going to get a bunch of short ones. I don't think I would take that number because of just the inconsistency of his rushes. If it was Lamar, if it was Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, the mobile quarterbacks, I think I would. But this guy is mobile when he has to be. And so I would not. By the way, DraftKings, BetRivers, and BetMGM all have 8.5. So if you were to take it, I would look at that because 8.5 is slightly better, but I wouldn't do that. I don't think I could do that with regards to Jacoby Brissett. The other thing is, if you guys believe in feeding the guy who didn't get very much, last week, Jake Ferguson had 1 target, no catches, no yards. Arizona for years, God, how many years has it been that Arizona has been terrible against tight ends? It always used to be in DFS, you played the tight end against Arizona. That was it. For years. It feels like even before Jonathan Gannon was there, they've been terrible against tight ends. If you look at what's going on with regards to the tight end position for Arizona, here's 4 guys. Tell me what the common thread is. Tucker Kraft, 10 targets, 5 catches, 58 yards. Tyler Warren, 9 targets, 6 catches, 63 yards. Jatavian Sanders for Carolina, 9 targets, 7 catches, 54 yards. Juwan Johnson, 11 targets, 8 catches, 76 yards. If you believe in feeding a guy after a down week, which didn't exactly work out for Jameson Williams because the offensive coordinator came out and said, oh, yeah, we're going to fix that. And then outside of the touchdown, he didn't do very much. If you believe Dallas is going to go out and feed Jake Ferguson, I would get involved with Jake Ferguson props, whether it's receptions or yards. I don't think he's going to have another down game, to say the least. And against Arizona, it is the tight end who has had some success. And look, there's only so much you can throw to CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, but Jake Ferguson is a guy that gets a lot of receptions. The irony is he doesn't get a lot of yards. 7 catches, 40 yards, 7 catches, 49 yards, 7 catches, 29 yards. Like, he's a guy that I think you would look more at the receptions than the yardage, but I could see him being busy tonight. I could see him being busy. So if you were interested in getting involved with Jake Ferguson tonight, and I'm looking to see what his number is right now. If you wanted to get involved with him, I would look more at the receptions. And obviously the books know the two places that's 4.5. It's minus 160 to the over and 172 to the over. And then you can get over 5.5 receptions, but that's a plus money. And he's gone over 5.5 receptions 5 times this season. So it's a possibility. It's just you're really, really, really hoping for a shootout tonight and that there's going to be a lot of points put up, which these are the famous last words. I can't see any reason how this is not a shootout tonight. I can't. I don't know. To me, this feels like tonight should be a 38-31 type of game. It should be. I don't see either defense slowing the other side down. Famous last words, right? It feels like we say this stuff and then sometimes it just doesn't happen. I mean, the Chiefs and the Bills were a higher scoring game, but it wasn't as high as I think a lot of us thought it was going to be. And of course, the Bengals and the Bears, that was as high scoring as we thought it was going to be. I guess basically we should just take overs on everything against the Bengals. Just take overs on everything against the Bengals. So that's my thoughts on the Monday night game tonight. Obviously, when Jared joins us, we'll get his thoughts and we'll put together an SGP. I don't know if him and Ariel have a pre-show meeting or anything. So we didn't have a pre-show meeting. So we'll see how many things we agree on. But we'll try and put one together for tonight. Joseph Rodriguez says Ferguson and Lamb anytime touchdowns. I mean, I sure. I mean, this is one of those things. What about Schoonmaker? How much is Schoonmaker playing tonight? Does Arizona have a backup tight end? That might be, or Schoonmaker could be a nice long shot one because he's a tight end. And if for some reason Jake gets hurt, Schoonmaker plays 39% of the snaps. Just saying. I don't think it's going to hit, but if you want to go really long shot, he's the guy. He did have 2 catches last week against Denver, 2 for 25. Just saying, if you want to go really long shot, Schoonmaker is the one to look at. The kid out of Michigan. But that's just another place. Oh, you got Schoonmaker over half a reception. Ooh, which book did you get that from? That's not a... See, I love... This is why I say there's a lot of money to be made on some of these smaller guys. Ooh, BetMGM has over a half and 4.5 receiving yards. And he's 8-1 to score a touchdown in one book, 6-1 to score a touchdown in other books. Just watch Schoonmaker tonight. Just watch him. He could be that really cheap guy if you want to put together a DFS lineup. He could be the cheap guy that allows you to fit in Brissett, Dak, Ferguson, Harrison. He might be the guy that kind of gets you to the finish line. Of course, he could get a 0, but we'll see what happens there. So that's my thoughts there. We'll do more on Monday night when Jared joins us. M. Rojas asks, since we are at the halfway mark, any futures that have value in the NFL? So to me, I think the value is in who you think is going to come out of the NFC, to me, right now. Because I think the NFC, you can make a case for at least 5 teams. You can make a case for 5 teams. You can make a case for the Rams, the Eagles, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Lions, the Buccaneers. That's 6. I don't really believe in the 49ers. I think the 49ers are going to make the playoffs because they have a really easy schedule. Thank you, Mark. That's very nice of you. Even though you hated me last week because I was against your team, which I really wasn't. I just was financially against your team. Thank you, Mark. And listen, I've been wrong plenty, so don't I'm not perfect, but thank you for that, Mark. I think if you want to try and figure out the NFC winner, that's where you can find some value. And look, as I said, it bothers me to say this, but like, Chicago is interesting. Dallas is interesting. I don't think they have enough to go through potentially 3 of the top teams in the NFC. But like Dallas, apparently, if you guys haven't been paying attention, Jerry Jones went on SiriusXM radio today and said, I made a trade, but I'm not telling you who it's with. And he's trying to make a couple others. If Jerry makes a couple trades on defense, maybe. But then the problem is they won't win the division. They would then have to go through a mixture of Green Bay, Detroit, Seattle, Philly, Tampa Bay. I don't think they can do that. The only way they'd have a chance is if they win the division, and I don't think they win the division, and that would only mean they play 2 tough teams instead of 3. But if you really want value, I think you can find some value. Like the AFC, I don't think there's value. I think it's the Bills and the Chiefs. I think the Colts are frauds. I still think maybe the Ravens. I don't believe in the Broncos yet. I don't believe in the Patriots yet. The Patriots have looked really good. But I think there's more value in the NFC. And look, if you even want to get more gutsy, I think you go and try and predict the finalists. And then you could find a lot of value. A lot of value. Yeah, Uncle Ted, so I have to be careful what I say about Green Bay because obviously the Eagles are playing them this weekend. But like, if that was an effort that didn't show me that they were looking ahead to next week and not paying attention to Carolina, my goodness. I've had Green Bay's defense on my fantasy team. They are way overrated. Of course, you'll clip that and remind me this when they lose to the Eagles, when the Eagles lose to them on Monday night. But like, that was a horrendous effort by Green Bay. Horrendous. Look, I still believe in them. I still think they're fine, but like that was the problem with Green Bay is they play down to their competition at times, just like Buffalo. I feel like Buffalo at times plays down to their competition. Buffalo could be a hangover candidate this weekend after the win over Kansas City. I mean, isn't this the same thing? We see this every year. Buffalo beats Kansas City in the regular season, and then all of a sudden, like, they don't beat them when it matters because then the officials helped them out. So that's the NFL. We'll do more in the NFL when Jared comes on. We'll ask Jared if there's any futures that he kind of likes. You could be right, Jermaine. They could. Look, the Eagles just have to win 2 of the next 3. They got to beat Green Bay or Detroit and then Dallas and then go 2-1. And then like the rest of the season, they'll be fine. But this next 3 games, I think also if you want to try and predict which team might make an impact trade, that'll help because the futures odds will change. If somebody makes a huge trade, like if somebody gets Trey Hendrickson, which I don't think he's going anywhere, that's going to be a huge help. If somebody trades for Myles Garrett, which I don't think he's going anywhere, that's going to change the odds. So if you want to try and guess who that team might be, you'll get some value. The problem is if they don't make any trades, then that will be a little bit of an issue, to say the least. All right, college basketball starts tonight. If you follow me on Twitter, I posted a couple plays. My college basketball, I used to be a really good college basketball handicapper. The last couple of years, I have come back down to earth. I am mediocre, to say the least. If you're looking at the college basketball card tonight, I would not go crazy, but I would also look at some of these large spreads. And there are some coaches out there who love running up the score. Kansas is one of them. There's a couple of other coaches that the old Bruce Pearl, Auburn used to never show mercy. I don't know if his son is like that. We'll see. But like, you're going to see a lot of matchups with 30, 40, 50 point spreads. The better way to play those probably is to look at team total overs, to say the least, or team total unders for the opponent. But like early on, I'll tell you this exactly. Early on in college basketball, you're going to have some of your best wins point spread wise, and you're going to have some of your worst losses because we don't know much about these teams. The books don't know much about these teams. So you may get somebody that was like a 1-point favorite and they win by 30, or you may take somebody that was like a 5-point favorite and they lose by 30. So like, don't get discouraged if you're betting the first week. There's like 120 games tonight or whatever. It feels like it's crazy. I'll tell you this. I didn't even look at half of them. I just concentrate on the early part of the card, and that's just the way I kind of looked at things tonight. And then I also look at returning starters and returning minutes, at least early on. Teams that have a lot of returning starters, they're going to have more continuity than teams who don't. That's something I look at. Plus, you can't be afraid to bet road teams at least early because some of these schools are not ready for college basketball season. And so the crowds may not necessarily be the greatest. But like, this will be the time when you have your best wins and your worst losses because nobody knows anything. There's so much parity in college basketball and there's so much change to these rosters in college basketball that you're just gonna have, it's gonna be interesting. Like, I took a couple MAC teams tonight. I took I think Ohio on the money line. I took Ball State on the money line. They could win by 30. They could lose by 30 tonight. So just be careful. I wouldn't blow a lot of your bankroll tonight. Small wagers. And certainly, don't chase anything. And if you want to bet something live, make sure you're watching it. Make sure you're watching the game. If you're watching Arizona and Florida tonight, you get a sense as to one team you like a little bit more, bet it live. I think that's something we always kind of forget. Live betting is just a good way to go. Sometimes in all sports. Good to see that we're both on Ohio tonight. I paid a little bit of juice on the money line, but look, I don't know about free throw shooting. I don't know. I don't want college kids having to make key free throws. So just go out and win. Just go out and win. That's all. Just go out and win. I'll tell you this, one game to watch tonight, and it's only because they're a team in my area. James Madison. The total in their game against Akron is 153.5, 154. JMU's offense is going to be tough to watch this year, but I think they're going to play a lot of good defense, especially at home. Akron plays very little defense and runs a lot, so I see why the number's so high, but I'll be interested to see how JMU looks tonight because that offense is going to be tough to watch at times. And especially on the road, they may struggle to score. So look at that. Good to see we're both on. I didn't take the under. Obviously, I can't bet on Virginia schools here in Virginia, but I'm heavily watching and scrutinizing that game tonight. By the way, the other direction, you know how Tony Bennett's no longer in Virginia? The total for the Virginia game opened at 143.5, went up to 147. That's how you know Tony Bennett's no longer in Charlottesville. That team's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think anybody has bets that say makes the tournament or not, but I think Virginia can make the tournament this year. I think Virginia could definitely make the tournament this year. And I know somebody asked Friday for college basketball futures. I don't really have too many. I don't really have any that I've put too much money on yet. I kind of like Virginia to do pretty well. I like GW this year as a sleeper. I think GW is going to be pretty good in the Atlantic 10. And then I kind of like Florida Gulf Coast to win the Atlantic Sun. They're the second favorite, so it's not going to be much of a price, but I like Florida Gulf Coast. I think Dunk City is going to be back once again. Dunk City is a very athletic team. They brought in the right transfers, and I think they're going to be pretty good this year. So that's some of the stuff that I'm kind of interested in for college basketball futures. So if anybody else has anything, Uncle Ted, for the ACC, I don't know. I mean, Duke and Louisville are that much better than everybody else. SMU could be interesting this year. I don't really know. There's really no value anywhere else. I think Virginia Tech could be interesting this year too. They brought a couple kids in from overseas. They're centers. I think that Virginia Tech could be really bad or really good. Nowhere in between is what I'm thinking for Virginia Tech this year. Miami spent some money this year, but they have a brand new coach and I think almost a brand new roster. So that kind of worries me a little bit. I wouldn't take them yet. I'd wait to see how they look. But they got the assistant from Duke, who I think a lot of people like. But yeah, I don't really have a ton of futures right now for college basketball. It's so tough because I'm so into college football that college basketball sneaks up on me. And so I do my research, but not as much because I'm so focused on the college football card and baseball, of course, too. Those are my two best sports. So I spend so much time on that I'm not really worried about college basketball as much. And I've decided I'm going to pull back a little bit early. I used to go full 10, 12 game cards, and I can't do that anymore. All right. It is an honor and a pleasure to have this guy share the stage with me. And I got to make sure I do this right because last Friday, I didn't have a guest with me. So joining us now, there we go. I did it. All right. Jared Block is joining us from Trinity Analytics, and it is an honor and a pleasure to be on with you, considering the last couple of weeks we have agreed on some Monday Night Football props.
It's great to be here, man. Nice to meet you officially. I'm always at the tail end of this show with you and before I jump on, so I get to hear your takes. And yeah, we're relying on a lot of stuff. Speaking of, we have one of the best kicking scenarios tonight in Dallas.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Arizona allows a ton of them. They're 29th at 2.1 field goals made per game. Dallas is at 1.6. Does that mean you're looking at the over 3.5 tonight?
I am. And I think we can feel a little bit better. One, because this is in Dallas. And number two, well, either way, it would have been great because they're both in domes. Number two, I do think that Jacoby Brissett, at least right now, is the better qualified quarterback to sustain drives. And number three, I do think that Chad Ryland, not only is he consistent, but he's actually being used correctly and effectively. They're leaning on him to score and be an actual primary source of scoring rather than some teams that kind of just, some teams that are a little bit more aggressive maybe and just want to go for it and go to goal situations. So I like that spot quite a bit. And then what's bad to say about Brandon Aubrey at home? I can't really put a bad mark on that.
Yeah, and considering the books have made his over 1.5 so expensive,
Right.
it's pretty crazy. It's minus 198 in one book. Like that's ridiculous for a guy that he should go over that, but like that, I'm not paying that price for something like that.
Yeah. So, well, exactly. And that's why I like going over 3.5 in a spot that makes a lot of sense is really good. Uh, I worry, I guess, a little bit about I guess like the one red flag you could poke in the Aubrey stuff is that Dallas's offense has just been unbelievable and they haven't had to use him from field goal kicking standpoints. And so like the 2+ isn't really trending well, but at the same time, like this game is 53.5 game total. The last 3 games that have been played in Dallas this year have scored over 65 points and 2 of them have gone over 70. So like there's going to be plenty of scoring tonight. And so, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, sometimes in like these super high over under games, we don't see as many field goals kicked just because it's resulted in a lot of touchdowns. But I feel like it's a really good market to play.
So something else I was looking at tonight, and I locked in early. Jacoby Brissett over 14.5 rushing yards. He's highly mobile, and Dallas is allowing the second most rushing yards per game to quarterbacks this season. Thoughts on that?
Yep, I see the same thing. He's also, it's not even like fluky stuff either. In those 2 starts, he's actually used his legs quite a bit. And I do think that it's been against quality opponents. Like I can't say anything bad about the 2 matchups that he's had, and considering the pace of play and considering Dallas's pushback, I feel like it's a relatively good comparison when looking at the games that Brissett has started. It's Packers and what Colts? Has he started both those games? Yeah. So Dallas, in terms of EPA per play, has just as good of an offense in terms of that.
And the thing is, we don't have to worry about knees because they're probably not going to win the game. And if they do, I'm guessing Dallas might have the ball at the end. It's going to be that type of game. So, knees are usually that thing that we kind of worry about. And I don't think he's going to be doing those tonight.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I like this one to shoot out quite a bit. My final score prediction in my game breakdowns 30-27 Cowboys, just because I want to sit on the fence of the side total. Do you have a lean on the side total? Because I'm all in on the over of this one.
Yeah, I think it's the over or pass. I mean, this feels like I can't see an avenue where there's not a shootout tonight. It feels like it's going to be indoors. So there's going to be no weather conditions or anything like that. So yeah, it feels like it's an over or pass to me. With regards to the total side, I mean, I don't know. It depends on which Dak shows up. If Jacoby Brissett keeps playing well, I don't have anything really on the side. But yeah, the over is probably the way I would go there.
That's my thought. And eventually we probably agree that Jacoby Brissett is likely to just kind of burn out one of these weeks. This does not feel like a situation where that would happen. And then on the flip side, like you do have the Cardinals having the bye week. That helps tremendously, helps them prepare for a road game, which is not really a normal opponent. So I do think that a lot of things just point in the direction of that. And furthermore, like Kyler hasn't been practicing with the ones this week, so that makes me feel even better.
Yes, 100%. Although I did find it funny that they might get him in on certain packages.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that.
I don't know what that's going to
like
be.
The least trustworthy person when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, I have no idea. All right, there's 2 other ones that I'm interested in. Get your thoughts on. Michael Wilson, over 2.5 receptions. With the amount of snaps he gets in the game, and once again, assuming this is a shootout, a number feels a little bit low.
It does. It feels low for a couple of secondary Arizona receivers. And we've seen, maybe it does change. Maybe they do give Marvin Harrison a little bit more extra work here, but we've seen that over the 2 games that Brissett has played, the Cardinals have jumped into a top 5 pass rate over expectation offense. And it is because these games are shooting out. So that has something to do with it, but we should kind of lean into that in this one, obviously, for the many reasons we've stated. We've just seen, back to the Harrison point, like this hasn't been the first read or favorite receiver. Obviously, that has been not Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride. But I think you're seeing Brissett just spread the offense around to give guys who are actually earning targets to get open. So you've seen that. I can buy into that spot for Michael Wilson. 3+ passes caught in 3 of the last 4, both of them with Brissett as well. I'm also kind of interested in Zay Jones too, who feels like the vertical threat for this Cardinals offense in this specific situation. We know the Cowboys allow a lot of deep passes. That also works to Michael Wilson's game as well. They've allowed a top 5 20+ completion and the second most 40+ completions. So guys like, and I'm not, this is nothing bad to say about Harrison. I think that the world will be on him tonight, and that's why I feel like some of these secondary receivers could step up in just as good of spots.
Last one I want to get into, and then we could certainly talk about whichever ones you want to. Jake Ferguson coming off of the 1 target game last week. For years, I feel like it's 5-6 years now, you play tight ends against Arizona, and it feels like tonight is let's feed Ferguson night.
I agree with this, and I think here's like something like, just for your sake and for the listeners here, I tend to look at things in 4-week samples when we get to this point in the season. It's always good to back things up with a year-long worth of data. But I think once we're almost there yet. So I like to try to look at this after most of the bye weeks have gone through. But because sometimes you'll get like situations like the Cardinals where they've only played 3 games or 2 games sometimes in this section of the season when looking at 4-week samples. But if you take a look at some of the guys, at some of the teams that they've played recently, I think the main one that goes back to this is Tucker Kraft. Like, he eviscerated the team last 2 weeks ago. We have seen just, I'm not buying into Jake Ferguson just completely falling off. I think that was just a really tough matchup that ended up breaking the wrong way. But you see the last several tight ends that have faced off against Arizona. Kraft 558-1, Tyler Warren 663-1. Like, those guys are the same relative role for Ferguson, 20% target shares. Chikakonkwo did well in a game where like the Titans were able to actually pass the ball 4 for 48. AJ Barner even a month ago got in the end zone with 3 for 32. So the spot has its holes, and I think that you see, in terms of like DVP, you see a lack of wide receiver production. I think I'd take that with a grain of salt, just because some of these teams have done really well against Arizona in terms of receivers. But yeah, the Ferguson role for me, it's pedal to the metal. I'm not really interested in fading that. And I think if there was one receiver to like fully buy into, it's probably him if you're looking at like recent matchups.
Anything else strike your fancy for tonight?
I want to just stress again that I really like the Ryland stuff. I didn't have a good read on Javonte Williams, but I feel like obviously if the game shoots out, he'll be a really big part of it. I think the one last thing that I want to note for the football game is that this is a really, really good spot for Bam Knight. I do think that it comes with a little bit of cloudiness, right? Like Vegas is expecting 2, if not all 3 backs to play. Do we get an official confirmation that Michael Carter got called up?
Yes, he did get elevated.
Okay. And I think it's just worth the risk today. And I think that if we get Bam Knight and kind of just, the thing is, like, Gannon's just always been a guy that's been rather quiet up to the media about situations and giving us weird information. He says that Bam Knight's going to get the lead role, and then they're going to like play it by whoever's got the hot hand. Well, what happens if Bam Knight it has the hot hand the entire first half? Like, that's kind of my thinking, because he should have success here, and he's played well in the games that Brissett has started. So that's kind of my thought process here. Dallas has allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing backs. We know that running backs have scorched them, and they've allowed the third most receiving yards to that position as well. We're kind of just hoping that like DeMercado just has not been a pass catching option, really. I guess it kind of just comes down to like, can Bam Knight just take all the work? And I know that seems unrealistic, but I'm kind of leaning into him getting 18 touches here.
Yeah, it's funny because DeMarcado was the guy last year as a receiver, and this year he only has 2 catches in the 6 games he's been in. So it's weird that they've changed their tune with him.
I completely agree, and I think that coming out, like, it's nice to see that we have Coach speak about Zonovan Knight and having him have the lead role. But we've already seen before the bye week that he was the guy that was getting this opportunity. So I think that you kind of just like this could be totally different in like week 11. But I think right now is a really good time to just kind of trust the numbers and not so much the coach speak as much.
So if we were to put together our final SGP for this game, what are we thinking here?
Well, I think that we have to look at that 3.5 field goals, right?
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
one feels great. I think Brissett, uh, if we can find an alt pass plus rush, that would be good. Even if we only went passing, that's totally fine too. So I'd like to go there. I think Ferguson receptions probably feels like the safer play than the yards. We've seen them
Right.
kind of give him just like the yards per target has gone down since Lamb's been back. So I think that Ferguson receptions is totally fine there, and I'd be willing to add anything else you like.
I mean, probably the Wilson over 2.5 receptions, hoping that he
Yeah.
kind of holds off Zay Jones. That I
Yep.
think that's going to be pretty good. But yeah, that feels about right. And of course, when this game's 13-10 and maybe we get the field. Well, that's only 3 field goals. So no, we want 16-10 then. And that's the way we get the 4 field goals instead of it. But this feels like one of these games where I can't see an avenue where it's not a shootout tonight.
That's my thinking. I think that Dallas at home is kind of a cheat code for offense and that for both sides, right? So I'm just going off that. At some point, sure, this is only a 3-game sample. Like I get it, but the games, like I said, that have just completely shot out. They had the 80-point overtime game against the Packers. They had like a 70+ Giants Cowboys game, and then what was the other one? Like it was like another 70+ point game. I can find it. I knew I had it in my notes, but I'm just looking for it right now.
So yeah, we'll take a look at that. So that is the Monday night game tonight. And if you have YouTube TV, figure out how to find the
Oh,
game tonight
jeez.
because
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able to watch it.
Uh-huh. Oh, so okay, I got it. 77 points against the Giants at Dallas, 80 points against the Packers in Dallas, and then 66 points from the Commanders in Dallas. So, like, while that last Commanders Cowboys game kind of fizzled at the end for Washington's sake, you still see Dallas contributing at home, and that kind of carries me with this one.
Right. Plus it's Dallas and they want to play well in prime time. And so they'll keep scoring and
Yeah.
they'll keep doing it. So
You see Jones come out today and said he's got a very good trade on SiriusXM and then didn't share any details.
yes, it's hilarious. That is yeah, I could see Howie Roseman doing that at some point. No, but it's funny that Jerry Jones came out. It's not like they're not going to announce it at some point, Jerry, but like, hey, thanks. We'll be looking forward to that.
Like, why don't you announce it yourself right now?
Exactly. You own the NFL. Like, let's be honest. You pull the strings behind Roger Goodell anyway. All right. Let's do some NBA tonight. There is 9 games tonight. So I'm going to let you take the lead here a little bit. First off, I guess, do you think we have enough accurate sample size early in the season, or are you still trying to pick up data points on a lot of these teams?
I still think that we don't have enough. Like our rule of thumb at Trinity Analytics is 30-day samples for the daily sports, specifically for pitchers and specifically for NBA players. I think you can carry some things over year to year from like the last half of the season and then like the first like month of the regular season. But and sometimes like those things carry over. Like Washington's still terrible against centers, and that's not going to change for a while now. But you kind of look at for what I like to try to do. I like to try to identify coaching changes. I like to try to identify teams that are adjusting in pace of play, whether good or bad. And then finally, like who's the most injured and what have they done to fix those problems. A main source of like what have they done to fix those problems is with this Pacers spot tonight. They obviously have a decimated everything, but specifically they're allowing the 4th most rebounds to centers and power forwards. They're also allowing a lot of rebounds to the shooting guard position. This is just a phenomenal spot for Giannis, who's already dominated. In this matchup, historically, the Pacers are allowing the 2nd most assists as well. I'm not really – I know it's a big storyline. Miles Turner back in Indiana. And for what it's worth, I'm a Bucks fan, so you can take this with a grain of salt. You can call it fan bias or whatever. But I do think that you could make a case that they'll force feed Turner to try to get him going early in this spot. I'm not super sure that that's like a for sure fire situation. Like there are better revenge narratives you could say on this card. I think like Mikal Bridges to the Nets is interesting as well. But I think at the, or I think at the same time, like it's one of those spots where like I think Miles Turner's being used more like Brook Lopez, and this is more of a Giannis game. So I'm really, really high on Giannis rebounds and assists today. I think that the points are fine too, but that's always going to be a super inflated market. And then going back to my other point about like teams focusing on who's running and who's not running and how that's affecting the systems, like this has been a revelation for Miami. And I don't know how familiar the chat is or you are with pace of play notes, but Miami has been arguably one of the slowest paced teams in the league for like the last 5 years now. It's just not the style they're used to playing. They had Jimmy Butler that forced the offense to run in more half court scenarios. And we're seeing that kind of translate like that in Golden State. Now Miami has completely gone out and revamped how they are running offenses. Even Bam Adebayo came out last week and said that they're not even running any plays. I think that was the exact quote. They're just running. And that has forced teams to go up in pace. And for DFS purposes and for betting purposes, the better the pace, the more possessions in the game, the more opportunities for peripheral stats and fantasy scores. So I think that the Clippers, who are one of the oldest teams in the league and one of the slowest teams in the league, kind of just they gotta run with the young guys tonight. And I really like the Clippers over their team total.
Yeah, that's looks like that total's gone down 4 points since it opened at 230.5. I'm seeing a bunch of 226.5s, a couple of 227s out there.
And that does make sense considering you probably saw short money come in really heavy on when this opened. And then that does feel like a lot of points at the end of the day for the entire game itself, just because the Clippers do have a really stout defense. So I'd be willing to just kind of take a one-sided shot there and just say Clippers get over their team total, which I believe is, last I checked, 118.
Okay. Here's one from the chat. What's your thoughts on Lauri Markkanen tonight?
So the way that you have been able to beat Boston is with the three-point shot, and I do think that Markkanen's been playing a little bit over his head in terms of the scoring. Utah has to play differently tonight because they don't have Walker Kessler, so I don't mind the taking the under on Lauri Markkanen. We've also just seen, and I guess we'll have to see what their lineup is, because I believe that Yusuf Nurkic is going to take the center, and there's not going to be any shifting up or down for the Utah starting lineup. We've seen so far this year, and again, I don't know how long this is going to hold for, but it's pretty consistent from last year to this year. Last year, Boston was allowing the third fewest points to the power forward position, but they were also like one of the best defenses in the league. So every position was terrible against that. So this year, though, they are allowing the fewest points to the power forward position. So he's on to something for sure with that one.
All right, we'll give you another one here. Let's see. He also has Holiday over 11.5 assists and rebounds.
Yeah, I'm off of this game because of the uncertainty. Now with Luka and Austin Reeves out, they got ruled out like 2 hours ago-ish. It was like right when our show started. And we kind of just chalked it up to like, sure, you can kind of try to predict what's going to happen with the Lakers here. It's a lot of minutes and usage off the floor. It's like almost like 70% usage off the floor for the Lakers. So from that aspect, like it's not something I'm going to take a strong look at. But in terms of defense versus position for the Holiday stuff, and obviously no Scoot, no Dame, Portland's been playing really well as a starting unit, and Drew Holiday's been a big part of that on his new team. If you look at some of the DVP stuff, like the spot for Drew Holiday looks really good. Pulling up my notes for this game because I'm pretty sure I wrote this trend up as well. Yeah, he's recorded 13 plus rebounds, assists in 5 of 6 games. So like I expect more of that, and I expect Portland to win tonight.
Let's do this one from Joseph. How about a Joker triple-double tonight?
Yeah, it's hard to see that not happen. I think that this is a phenomenal, like backing up, like first of all, this is the best rebounding spot on the card. The Kings are allowing the most rebounds to opposing centers in the NBA, and Joker's just on this incredible tear to start the year. Like I don't see anything wrong with it. The only thing that could and I try to be blowout optimistic. So the National Blowout Association is really hard to predict in terms of blowouts. So I try to remain optimistic. I think that any blowout is like anything that I'm scared of from a blowout is like if the team is up or down 20 points entering the fourth quarter. That's kind of how I view it. And those things can go, one way or the other from there. But with that said, like I said, like they're allowing a ton of rebounds to opposing centers. We even saw Denver went up. I forgot which team and game it was, but they specifically kept Jokic in to get that 10th assist, and they took him out when they shouldn't have had him in there in the first place. So you can say that they kept him in for that reason. Probably is the case. I think that the only thing that kind of ruins this would be a blowout scenario, but it does help that Zach LaVine and Dennis Schroeder are playing on the Kings tonight.
Let's do this one from M. Rojas, who wants to know about Dalton Connect and why his line is 3.5 at threes.
Well, it's mainly because the Reeves and Luka spot, they're both out. We don't know if Marcus Smart's playing. It seems like he's trending in the right direction. Same thing with DeAndre Ayton. Dalton Connect's likely going to start tonight. He's likely going to put up a good 5 to 8 threes. So I think that that's probably something I'd stay away from, but that's why it's lined that way.
I'll ask you about my Sixers. I know they're not playing tonight, but analytically, how is this like a legit for real start, or is this going to fade at some point?
It all depends on what Paul George gives you and what they would do moving forward, because you probably move Oubre to the bench, right? But he's been one of the best and most consistent guys on your team in the last year and a half. So that's a tough situation that he'll have to buy into if they choose that route. I think that VJ Edgecombe is the savior of your early season. Obviously, Maxey is incredible, but VJ has just come in and just taken that. You needed that second guard to really take off, and you just haven't had that with like Eric Gordon and some of the other pieces that have been just not really like getting there and matching the production that Maxey has. So Maxey's he's gonna be, if he continues this, he's gonna be an all-star. And I do think that he's got a really, really bright future. But Edgecombe, like that is a huge difference. And then finally, like Embiid, you need him to just I don't know what they do here, but I don't see him playing 30 minutes in the NBA for a long time. And maybe not until the playoffs. And if that, like I think that he could try to be as hyper efficient as possible in 25 to 28 minutes, but he also, I think, and I guess you are more in on this than I am in terms of just what the vibes are around this, but I know vibes are good. You've also just seen, in order for this team to be like truly successful and take the next step, they need to tell Embiid that this is not his team anymore, which I don't know if he's willing to hear.
No, he won't hear that, but that's all right, because I would tell him, and I think everybody else should tell him, because it's not his team anymore. And I am concerned that Paul George is going to ruin the vibes, whether it's on the court or at this podcast.
Yeah. Again, like I said, like you can't put George on the bench. You can ramping him up, sure, but when he's actually healthy and playing, like you got to demote someone. I guess they could maybe move Oubre to the 4, but that's going to propose some interesting matchup problems down the stretch. Again, like sitting one of those key contributors early doesn't feel like a good vibe. And then who gets the ball? Where's the usage go? Because Oubre is not really, he's capitalizing off of a rather minimal usage rate in his career, especially from last year. So I don't think like George and Embiid should be getting 25% usage rates, and like Maxey should be a third of your team, and Embiid kind of just has to play these tight 20 to 22 minute, extremely efficient, hyper efficient type of situations. I don't know where George fits there.
All right. Why don't you give us maybe one more for tonight?
Let's see. This one's interesting. I'm going to go to Memphis. So the Grizzlies are underdogs. We know that they run at one of the fastest paces in the league. Detroit has definitely improved defensively, though. I do worry about like some of this in terms of if Tobias Harris doesn't play, then maybe things get a little bit more on the Memphis favored side. I want to talk about Ja Morant because there's been a lot going on in the news, recent criticisms of the coaching staff in terms of post-game interviews. He's gonna, figure he's always gonna be in the middle of all the drama. How does he respond from this suspension thing? This is a wonderful spot in terms of we always kind of try to look for like top 10 NBA players and scoring via the different zones on the court, paired with what team is allowing the most zones or the most points in those zones. Detroit's only real weakness right now is defending the paint, and they're allowing the fifth most paint field goals per game. You have both Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., who is essentially, those are the two really like prominent pieces of their offense right now with everybody injured. Morant ranks 5th in the NBA, and Jaren Jackson Jr. ranks 6th in the NBA from paint scoring per game. So when two things line up like that, you're going to see a lot of success. Morant has like a top 10 drive rate in the league too, so he's looking to get in the paint and score, and this is the matchup he can do it in. I could see this fall on its face, but I could also see a very motivated John Morant kind of take over this one and kind of prove in his mind like the coaching staff was wrong for the previous things said.
So we'll see what happens. Yeah, he has certainly been in the news, and that always makes for very public bet, and either on his over or his under.
Yep. So we'll see. I have faith in this spot specifically. And it's more so just like, man, like there's like 5-6 key contributors out every single night for this team. So it definitely doesn't hurt.
All right. As we let you go, why don't you tell everybody about the website and tell everybody about Trinity Analytics?
Yep. So Trinity Analytics has been around. It was actually our debut year in the baseball season, but I've been covering DFS with my partner, Josh Reimer, since 2016. We talk a lot about things on our X profiles at Jared R. Block and at Josh T. Reimer on X. We develop systems. We develop game breakdowns for every single game during the daily sports, and then obviously cover all the NFL goodness and college football stuff as well. So that's where you can find us at thetrinityanalytics.com.
All right. Well, Jared, it was a pleasure to be on the same panel with you for once as we follow each other here, and certainly good luck tonight. And hopefully we get the shootout we're hoping for with plenty of field goals.
Good luck to you too. Let's get it.
All right. That is Jared Block of Trinity Analytics. And there we go. I got to fix that. No, maybe not. Oh, no. Well, you might have to deal with this for a second. Oh, wait, there we go. All right. So that'll wrap it up here for the show. Unless anybody has any real last minute comments, that'll wrap things up here. And we'll keep going. And I think on Friday when I return, Ariel will be here hosting. If not, I guess I'll be hosting. So I'll be back on Friday. Make sure to follow her on Twitter. Make sure to go to the website and all that fun stuff. And hopefully you enjoyed the show and have a tremendous evening. And we'll talk to you again soon.